All right. Hello, everyone. I'm not sure if other people are still joining, but I think we can get started. There's a number of us already. I think, especially now that, so I should preface this by saying we're on a live stream and we're starting to publicize this a little bit more so that people can join onto the live streams, even if they're not participating inside the calls. And with that, I'll preface that we'll probably start these calls a little bit closer to the 5 p.m. Central European time than before, where it was like 4 or 5 minutes late. So with that, I think as more people join, we'll take a handle on that. But I'm not sure because it's always hard to tell on Jitsi who has been here and who hasn't. So I'll just invite volunteers to say if they haven't been here before, they can introduce themselves.
Hey, I'm Thomas O'Brien. I am a founder at Openwork Labs, and we're working on, is it AGP 19? That was our, yeah. Oh, sorry. I think you need to turn your volume up or something. I can hear. Sorry about that. So yeah, we're working on the storage for profile and discussion data, working with the Autalk group. And yeah, that's me. John's having some audio problems he's fixing, so he'll be on in a second.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sergey. I'm from Consensus Diligence. We're helping out with as a security partners. So decided to join.
Hey, my name is Martin, and I'm with Sergey at Consensus Diligence, helping out with security.
Hi, I'm Daniel, joining the Aragon 1 team as of today as a Web3 engineer.
Hi, I'm Radek, and I am part of the Autark. Someone said Autark group, but technically it's yes. Hello.
Hey everyone, this is John Schwartz. I'm part of Openwork Labs with Thomas, figuring out some audio issues on my computer. But yeah, getting excited to get started working on this.
All right, there's a lot of new people on this call, and we're very excited to have you. I think there's been a lot of new people joining after the initial Aragon network vote. We have a lot of Autark members joining these calls now, and then we can kind of get started with the agenda. So first things first is I need to appoint a note taker. So does anybody want to volunteer, or should I pick someone here?
I can do it.
All right, thank you, Gabby. And can I get someone else as well to help Gabby out?
Yep, sure, I can help.
Thank you. I don't know who spoke, but thank you. All right. So yeah. The first thing is a number of updates from every team. So I'll start with Aragon 1. The last 2 weeks, we were on the first part of our release cycle, I guess. We're currently on what's called 4.1, our 4.2 sprint that just started today. We have a release for the Aragon client. 0.6.4 that'll be coming out pretty quickly. It has a number of updates to the responsive design components that we've built and demoed at Aragon. All of the functionality that is there is still there, but it's been a little bit more optimized. We have a number of other pre-release releases with this update. The biggest one is an agent app for Melon particularly. It's getting used in mainnet pretty much immediately through Melon. So we don't have a front end for it yet, but it is available through the CLI as well as RAD spec descriptions through the client to show and DAO actually interacting with other protocols and other contracts on the Ethereum or on an EVM essentially through an organization's governance process. So I don't know if we have a good link for more of how that's set up. Jorge might be able to provide a link, but that's our initial use case for the Melon Concierge project. Thank you, Jorge. As well, we re-released Survey, and we're in the process of doing so on mainnet. But Survey is now available again on Rinkeby. It's basically just been updated lightly from last summer. It supports the responsive components and is installable through the CLI. Luke has a really good guide for installing applications through the CLI that I'll post here in the chat and on the notes as well. So if you're interested in how to set up a survey organization, the best bet is to follow that guide. I believe it may have been used at ETH Denver for judging, but I wasn't there and I haven't heard anything about it. So I'm only speculating based on prior conversations. And yeah, I think for the last 2 weeks, that has been our major priorities. These next 2 weeks, we're going to shift priorities into developing an app center that will allow people to upgrade their app contracts, as well as starting on our local identity epic, which will provide a way for users to locally add nicknames for addresses that they see through the identity badge component that we have scattered around each of the applications. But for more of those details, we'll be posting more links and having more mockups on Aragon/design as we progress with the stages. I'm not sure if anybody else from Aragon 1 has anything else they'd like to add to the update. Otherwise, we can go to the DAC or Daniel and Gabby. Not sure if Griff is here today.
Daniel, can you go so I can take notes?
Right. Yeah. So me and Gabby created a milestone on GitHub with some issues that we will tackle this week. And
sorry, Daniel, could you increase the volume or the mic?
Sorry. Yes. Is this better?
Yes.
So we have a milestone on GitHub for a new version of the CLI, a new minor version with some bug fixes, and we're working on testing, on end-to-end testing, and I think that's about it. And we also have the document I think Gabby shared at the last All Devs call, which is kind of like a roadmap. So if anyone has some opinions on what we should prioritize, please leave a comment in GitHub. Yeah, I think that's it.
All right, and then I think we can move on to Altric then.
Hello. Okay, so for us, today's our first day with the full team full time, so that's cool. We're excited to start on that. The previous cycle, we've been working on finalizing the integrations for submitting issues, requesting to work on issues, approving them, and all of that side of the projects app. So hopefully by the end of the week, you'll be able to interact with standard bounties contracts directly through the projects app and do the full issue flow for that. Going forward, our main focus for this next 2-week period is going to be finalizing the M4 and M5 stuff for the planning suite, as well as starting to do the research for our first roadmap items. We've drafted sort of a short-term roadmap and then also broken our full proposal into phases over this past cycle as well. If anybody wants that, we can either link that here or just let us know if you want that. Beyond that, we're also going to do the research sort of in parallel with some of the organization identity stuff. So we'll be watching pretty heavily to see how the badge components evolve and to see if that's going to fit our use case or not. And some of our decisions for the future phases will sort of focus around what we're seeing with that work. There's also the stuff that OWL has touched on briefly. If you want to give some further explanation on your initial research that you're going to try and get over this two-week period, could you do that, Thomas?
Yeah, for sure. So we're going to start looking at IPFS and some distributed database solutions like 3box, and start to look at the best solution for where to store the discussion and profile data. That's the first order of business. And yeah, we'll definitely be reaching out with our progress to make sure that we get lots of feedback from everybody.
All right, cool. Anybody else from Autark that wants to bring anything up quick? Or is that it from us? All right, sounds good. So we'll pass it on to Consensus Diligence.
Hey, this is Martin from Consensus Diligence. I'm here with Sergey and also John. We're happy to be a security partner with you for the ongoing security effort. We're currently focusing on the 060 release, making sure that there's no obvious bugs in there security-wise. And we would also like to figure out how we should file issues whenever we find them, because I think it doesn't make much sense to file security issues if they are exploitable on GitHub publicly. But we would probably like to do so for all the minor issues. If this is okay for you.
Yeah, I think we can discuss that. I've put that as the first proposed topic as to what the workflow should look like.
Okay, perfect.
All right. I did also pick up a few other people in the call. So I think Alex from Matio is here as well, and I think it's important to introduce Alex as well.
Hey, yeah, great. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so we're happy to be participating as well. On our end, we're getting familiar with the code base, and what that means so far is reading through documentation and repos. For those of you that aren't familiar with the baseline audit scope, we're currently reviewing Aragon OS and Aragon-apps repos. And the next thing that we're going to be tackling is DAO kits. So next week, we're going to be reviewing unit testing and inheritance structure, and I think beginning the engagement a little bit with diligence. So let's see, we have a statement of work there, and I don't know, maybe Merlin can speak more to how that's going so far. Let's see, other than that, yeah, I think the other question that we had was filing issues. So far, consistencies in documentation, but nothing major or anything like that. So I think the easiest thing to do would just be to pop those into, we have a Keybase channel on right now, but if there's a different method that we'd like or that we should be using, I'd love to hear it.
Morellian here. I'll just say what my preference I think would be for, especially for the rolling audits, would be really if it's like for almost anything, just to put comments on the public PRs. I think right now maybe we have comments about untested behavior, and I think we can I think that having secret, secondary, private repos for security discussion could get pretty heavy and confusing. So really, if it's like for new code, it should be fine to discuss, you know, things that we're concerned about, which is generally what I think would be the tone of the conversation, more like what's going on here. This seems a bit strange or confusing. And then if there's something that we actually think could be more dangerous, then, you know, people will have to use judgment and take it to the security Keybase chat.
Cool. I think that aligns pretty well. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I definitely say so too. The main thing that could be worrying is if you find something related to already published contracts, or already deployed contracts, which is, I think, where it might get more hairy, and we could use the Keybase channel more for, or a private repo, if we need something like a threaded conversation. I'm not sure if the form has any sort of private topic organization around it, but that might be another tool that we could use, or it might just get too complicated if we need to use that as well. So I'm not sure how much we need to manage until we actually find something like that.
Yeah, maybe we can all just be like careful security professionals, and when we cross that bridge, do it cautiously. And I think there are hidden forums, and that's totally a good way to do it for threaded conversations through discourse, if need be.
And for what it's worth, we do have security@aragon.org for public, what's it called? Bug reports. If anybody finds something, we have a PGP key as well that people can encrypt and email towards. But okay, so it sounds like we have at least a degree of consensus here, until we do find something more nasty that's on deployed contracts, at which point maybe I think we should first take it to the security channel, and then if it becomes a larger discussion, we can start to figure out how we want to organize around that. But until then, for the rolling audits, yeah, I think it makes sense to post any issues or comments directly onto those pull requests. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure if there was anything else that anybody else wanted to add towards that, but otherwise we can move on to the next few topics. I will note as well that there are not too many topics, so if you do have anything you'd like to discuss, please feel free to bring it up. But we'll get to the next one, which is we already touched upon the survey re-release, but that's something that will be on mainnet as well, following the current security guidelines and a few other upgrades that we're trying to make at the same time. Not too much is really happening on that front. We just kind of modernized the front end a little bit and pushed out the update so it could be used by ETH Denver if they did use it. And if you have any questions on how to install this app or how to use it, please feel free to use GitHub or the Rocket Chat channel. It is a little bit difficult to create surveys on it right now because there's no UI. You have to use a script for it. But yeah, I think we'll provide a little bit better documentation inside the repo. It's a little bit technical to use for the admin right now. Okay, and then we can go on to the payroll prioritization. And this is something that we've been talking about internally at A1 for a while, is how much we should prioritize payroll. We've kind of made separate incremental sprints, towards releasing a payroll application. and now it's looking like people really want a payroll solution on chain. So we're going to be pushing quite a lot towards finalizing the current payroll front end that Protofire has mostly completed, and just kind of taking that, deploying it at least onto staging and Rinkeby, and then towards more of a limited consumption release as we get more and more comfortable with people using the app. It does have a very not special, but it's like you have to kind of understand how the payroll app works, and so the security model kind of assumes a number of things that you need to be aware of as an admin. And for the most part, we expect people to use this with ETH and DAI, not anything crazy, not like their own tokens and things like that. So that's kind of part of the limited consumption is that there's only a few tokens that you can likely use with the initial release, or that will support officially, and that it should be fairly easy to convert these values back and forth and whatnot. But that's going to be a really interesting release. We're hoping to get out in the next couple of months, that more and more teams in this space can start using that application to start paying themselves. And it'll be a really, really cool way to onboard new users and just get people using Aragon as a whole. I didn't have too much to add to this outside of basically the status update. More will follow, and I'm sure we'll post more and talk about it more at these calls as well. But if you have any questions, there's always GitHub and Rocket Chat. Or even the forum, actually, for this. Okay, and then we can move on to the next topic. I'm not sure who proposed this, but it's to clarify Git branch structure and workflow.
Yep, that's me. I just want to ask you to clarify your Git branch structure and workflow. So I think, like, specifically, there's some branches use dev. I think all of them use next, which means something. And I've read some. I think I have ideas in my head about how I think it works, but it'd be really useful if you could just go into that for 3 minutes to sort of describe, like, when something uses dev as the main branch and when master, and what next really means, and maybe any other idiosyncrasies or important details.
Yeah, so for most of the repos in Aragon, in the Aragon organization on GitHub, most of them will have a master branch along with a next branch. Actually probably most of them won't have a next branch, but the next branch is mostly used for updates that are hard to deploy or hard to publish. This applies to everything except for Aragon OS, which has a more special structure. So we can talk about that in detail a little bit after. But for all of the other repos, and specifically those dealing with contracts, because contracts are hard to publish and deploy, and they need more cycles of review, we stage any changes to the contracts in a next branch. And then when they're ready to be reviewed again and ready to be deployed, we merge next to master, so that we can signal if the changes for security review, as well as just taking another look at what's changed. And then that way we also know that master at any given time is what's currently deployed on any given network. Part of this as well is some repositories like Aragon apps have different bits of the code that can change at different increments. The front ends, for example, for each of the applications is very easy for us to deploy, and usually we deploy them about 2, 3, 4 weeks on average. And so we have all of these changes on master because we know at any time master we can deploy. Whereas next is something that we know we can't deploy yet until it goes through a more rigorous process.
Okay, that's pretty helpful. But I think, unless it's changed, I think that the apps use dev as the default branch when you visit GitHub, at least.
The only one that has dev as the default branch is Aragon OS.
Okay, OS.
And yeah, this is kind of the special case. This branching structure came before we realized Next was needed. So it's kind of a legacy branching structure, let's say. But the reason why we keep it this way is because master is something that is deployed on chain, but Next may not be. But there may be changes in Next that may be useful for app developers on any given version. There may be small interface additions or changes that may kind of just help them build their applications in ways that don't change the bytecode and things like that. And that's mostly why we have a Next branch for releasing kind of incremental versions that don't break anything with the previous version.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah, and then, I mean, that's why that's the default branch. And I've also been thinking as well, for Aragon OS, we probably need a third branch for more larger changes, more breaking changes, aside from those that can be published immediately. And that's where we might have something like Next to signal like the next version of Aragon OS being published, or the next major version of Aragon OS being published.
Thanks, Brett.
Right. Okay, I think there's a few more topics that's been added here. I think we can go to the next one, which is monolithic applications and its next steps. I'm not sure who posted this or if I should just take it.
Yeah, it's Olivier there from Pando. So I was the one putting that there just to follow up with the conversation we had in Aragon for those of us who were there about to figure out what the monolithic app architecture could be. So I was just wondering if there are actionable steps we can start working on, if there is a plan on how to achieve that, stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't have anything at the top of my mind, but Arthur may have an update.
Yeah, so the first steps we want to take with this are research. So we want to, if anybody does have notes from that, that they could send our way, that would be good. But what we want to do first is take those notes, reach out to all the teams that were present, as well as ones that weren't, that were interested, and sort of get their idea of what they need from the monolithic app changes. The first thing that we have on our roadmap to actually tackle for this is the modifications to the forwarder options, or more specific specifications for some of the other possible things you can do with the forwarders. And then based on the research and brainstorming, we'll try and get better multi-contract app support. So the research is in our first phase, the forwarder options are in our second phase, and then the multi-contract app support is in our third phase. Each of our phases being about four sprints. So ideally, I think that a lot of this research should happen in the forums. Once we get the notes from the meeting and we talk to the teams, we'll probably post a forum post with at least the initial needs that the teams have expressed, and then we can all sort of work and come to consensus on what the specification for these things will look like, and then we can move into implementation. Any other questions or anything on that, or does anybody else have anything to add?
No, for me, it was pretty clear regarding the question I asked. So thanks a lot. Nothing else.
All right. Yeah, I think we're all looking forward to seeing the research and more inspect details. I hadn't realized we didn't propagate the notes from that last meeting well enough, but I've put them in the chat here and as well in the notes. The next topic and the last one for now is app storage with IPFS.
I added this because we'll be looking to IPFS and other storage solutions. And I just want to suggest to look into the Aragon data store.
Yeah, Daniel, could you repeat that? I'm not sure if people might have heard.
I just want to suggest the Aragon data store because somebody mentioned they will be looking to IPFS and storage solutions for the app for data that doesn't belong on chain.
Yeah, on this, actually we worked last week. It's still not, we need to clean it up before we can publish it, but we've worked on this way to create kind of like REST APIs with that get hosted on IPFS. We've mainly been thinking about it for static data for like data sets of like token information or like RADspec strings. So it's not really something that you like, because you only put one hash on chain and like the rest of the data lives in IPFS, you kind of need to trust the person that stores the root hash to see how the transition has been made. And then if this is for like dynamic app data, the issue is, as always, how do you make sure that the data is pinned so the data is available? And there's like this thing that Storm City worked on with some other people called like IPFS Consortium, I think it was called, which is like they look for some events and some smart contracts that are part of the consortium, and then if everything's good, then like a bunch of people pin this content to their nodes, and this could be something interesting for like app data that gets into IPFS. The issue is like you can never be sure that data will be retrievable, even if there's like a consortium or whatever.
Yes, regarding this IPFS storage solution, I don't know what your read told in the end because it cut on my side, but I think the guys from OrbitDB, which is like an IPFS-based database, have done lots of work recently, and especially they've been working with the guys from Colony to be able to basically rely on an on-chain ACL list to be able to identify people who are authorized, granted the ability to post on the database and stuff. So I think it could be really interesting in like having a look at it to be able to interface a distributed database system to the Aragon ACL. That's just my 2 cents, but I think it's worth trying.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of probably interesting work being done with 3box on OrbitDB, the most important of which is sharding an OrbitDB instance. I mean, that's something that's really interesting and would be necessary, I think, for 3box to become eventually decentralized. But I think as well, a lot of the data store concerns are related to the monolithic applications. We were talking about how to store some of this metadata inside organizations, but apps as well, if we go down this road, have kind of the same problem as to how do they pin this information and how do they resolve it.
Yes, so I think regarding OrbitDB, it's particular because the idea that you can basically spawn an IPFS node in your browser, and then everyone is able to sync. Basically, everyone is supposed to sync the whole database in its own browser when you try to use it, or you can also like sync it in your personal IPFS node. But basically, it's really the ideas I've been trying to work on. I think is that every application becomes a replication, like your front end become also some kind of a replication of the whole database, which forces you and which requests to have very particular database schemes to be sure that you don't have to download everything each time you just want to query one thing. And yeah, also that's why I think the guys from Colony also have been working on the ability to have like an always running instance of the database, synchronizing all the stuff for everyone just in case everyone goes down at the same time or something. So trying to solve the pinning issue by providing one node pinning everything, basically.
Okay, yeah, I'm not sure if there's any particular action items outside of just watching this space. I know Thomas and John, working with Altec, this is kind of their field of interest and what they're looking at for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, we're super excited about both of those technologies. Definitely one of the main concerns for us is just like stability, but that also depends on you know, like which trade-offs we're willing to make and when. And yeah, we've worked on a somewhat similar setup at Ujo Music. So we had all of our music data pinned to IPFS, and we used a SQL database to kind of like cache that data. So that's kind of like another similar solution that could be good, is where we have the data in a distributed fashion, but we have a centralized cache to get to that data. So yeah, you know, obviously we'd love if we can get completely distributed really soon. So that's the goal, but we will see.
All right. I'm not sure, Olivier, if you had anything else you'd like to bring up for this topic.
No, I'm good.
All right. Then in that case, I think we're out of topics for this week. Is there any other topic that someone would like to bring up? Okay. I think that's it for this week then. The next one will happen in 2 weeks. So that's March 4th, just before SCC at the same time. And I'll see you all there.
Great.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.